Hello and welcome to this video on setting up Gutenberg in Drupal. Now, if you've been around the CMS world and especially WordPress and Drupal, then you would know that Gutenberg has been an editor in WordPress for about 5 years. And it was a bit of controversy, you could say, when it came out, because people really thought that the current way of authoring content um, on WordPress is perfectly fine using TinyMCE. But then a lot of platforms have moved over to like this block editing tool, similar to Notion, where you type in slash and then you type something in and then you get a block. So a block could be a paragraph, a title, an image, whatever you want. And so it's like block content editing or something like that. So the WordPress team developed Gutenberg, and I've used it on a bunch of my sites. I mean, webwash.net is a WordPress site, and I've used Gutenberg in that. And so because it's open source, somebody created a project. Now we have our first question. And that is Gutenberg stable for production? Now, I will answer that because that is a very good question. Now, the short answer is yes, I think it is. It's been around now for a long time, especially the Drupal module. Now, I did finish now, well, I've got a bit of a bot here anyway in the comments. So coming back to this. Now, I did cover the Gutenberg module in Drupal about 4 years ago in 2019. So before COVID, before the pandemic, before, everything. And I did end it by saying, because back then there was only about a couple hundred installs. And I did mention that I would be wary of using this in production because if you think about it, right, if you go ahead and install Gutenberg, create 200 odd, I was going to say 20,000, but 200 odd tutorials, and then all of a sudden you need to migrate over to something else, well, then you're a bit stuffed because your content's kind of locked in to Gutenberg. And I did end it by saying I would highly think about, I would highly recommend that you only use this if you have a team of developers that can take you off Gutenberg if it's required. But now, and this was 2019. So to answer your question, I would recommend that you use it in production because at the end of the day, Gutenberg is developed by the WordPress team. Well, I don't want to say WordPress team, or the contributors who contribute to it. I don't really know who it is. So when you think about it, the front end itself is ready for production. It's used by millions of sites, and the Drupal integration, as you will see, is actually pretty brilliant and it actually works very well, and I do recommend. And I have been thinking of moving my personal site back to Drupal, which hasn't been Drupal for a very long time anyway, because I use the right tool for the right job. Let's leave it at that. So in this video, I'll take you through the process of installing the module, configuring it, and we'll look at uploading images, chucking in blocks, Gutenberg blocks and Drupal blocks. Now, I'm going to be throwing the word blocks around because that's a very ambiguous term. Every system uses the word blocks for everything. So I will try and mention if this is a Drupal block or if it's a Gutenberg block, because it can be a little confusing because what block am I talking about? So I will try and mention that. And I'll also show you one of my favorite parts is how it integrates with the Drupal media system. So you can drag and drop images directly from the editor, from your desktop into the editor, and it just uploads out of the box, which is great. And I absolutely love that. And that was one of the reasons why I moved away from Drupal for WebWash, because I liked the ability of just taking screenshots, writing tutorials, and chucking it in there, just dragging and dropping directly into the editor. And WordPress has supported that for ages. Drupal, not so much. All right, let's start off by looking at the project page. So here, if you search for drupal.org/project/Gutenberg, you'll find the project page. And you'll see here that there are a few versions. So we have version 1 8.1, 8.2, and then we have just version 3. So you can see, depending on which version of Drupal you're on, just choose accordingly. Now, I will be playing around with version 3. It is a beta. It is pretty stable. And you can also see here, so from this page, you will see, I believe this will take you to the actual demo page. So this is the official demo page, and this is the editor. This is exactly what you get. Of course, it's going to look slightly different in Drupal. A few things here will look a bit different, but generally it will look the same. And the whole concept is that everything's a block. You can come along in here. You can add a heading, list item, do whatever you want. You can start typing, go slash, blah, 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 and you can just go ahead and type to your heart's content. Okay. Now, let's close this off. Well, actually, let's go back. No, actually, let's close it off. And if we scroll all the way down, what I'll do is I'll start things off by installing it. So I'll grab this and I'll chuck it into my Drupal site. Now, I do have a Drupal site set up locally. It's just a stock standard Drupal site. The only thing I've done is I've installed Drush. That's about it. So let's go ahead and download it and just give that a second or two to a download. And then if we go back here, let's close this tab. Let's close this tab. It's no longer required. Come along in here, search for Gutenberg, and you will see two modules. The Gutenberg editor is the main one. There is an example block module, which I'll show you later on in the advanced section of this video. So let's go ahead and install it. And now that we have the module installed, we need to configure it and set it up on a particular content type. Now, I do remember, well, looking at the issue queue, and I do think that the module only supports nodes or content types at this point. So you can't really set it up for, taxonomy terms or something. So it can only really work for content types like article, basic page, or any type of custom content type you are using. So to set it up, go to structure, content types, and then click on edit, and let's set it up on the article content type. And then if you scroll down, you should see Gutenberg Experience. If you can't see it, make sure the module is installed. If the module is installed, clear the Drupal cache and see if that fixes your problem. Then to enable it, all you need to do is simply check Enable Gutenberg Experience. Now, you can just save the form and be done with it, but let me just show you a few options here. So from the template section, you can modify a few editor-specific things, and this is more of advanced stuff here. But the section that I'm most interested in, and also you would be most interested in as a Drupal user, is this section down here, Allowed Drupal blocks. Well, if we click on Allow Gutenberg blocks, these are the standard blocks that come with the editor. So you can turn off and switch off whichever ones you want. So you have like mandatory ones such as paragraph, heading, list item, but then you can switch off if you know you're not going to use group, separator, text column, verse, video. You can go in there and switch them off. It's up to you. And then on the right here, you have all these embeds. So things like, I don't know if you can even embed Twitter stuff these days, or sorry, X. So you may want to turn this off. And this just gives you the ability to really fine tune and control what blocks are available to editors, especially if your editors, sometimes you can get a bit overwhelming if you have too much choice. So if we scroll down, then we get to the allowed Drupal blocks. Now, this is where you can actually specify and allow specific Drupal blocks. So they can be embedded in the editor, and they can be reused just like any piece of content, which is actually pretty powerful when you think about it. And it becomes even powerful when you use it with the media module. So here you've got breadcrumb messages, and you could, if you really want to, you can write custom code. You can implement your own your own block using a plugin. So a block plugin, and then you can implement whatever you want, and then you can come along in here and then just allow your custom block to be embedded. And then if we scroll down here, we can actually allow inline blocks. So you can go ahead and create any type of content block. Now, by default, Drupal, the standard installation profile, gives you basic block, but you can go ahead and create your own blocks with any type of custom fields and then allow them to be embedded into the editor. So you could do it with paragraphs. You could have a block field attached to a block type. No, sorry, a paragraph field attached to a block type. There's many things you can do. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the UI looks like. It'll be pretty squashed, but it can be done, which is actually pretty cool. Okay, once we have everything set up, let's just leave everything as it is. Click on save. And now if we go to content, add content, and click on article, we should see our editor. Now, of course, this looks very different to, say, this form. So let's go back here. And one of the things I always like to do is just to make sure there's no errors. No, there's no JavaScript errors. Perfect. Everything's working nicely. Now, this is the main Gutenberg editor. If you want to start typing, you can just go in here and start typing. So test paragraph. And this will automatically create a paragraph for you. If you want to add in another block type, you can type in / and then you can type in either image, and that will allow you to embed images. You can also type in /heading as well if you want to add in a heading, and then you can adjust the heading size if it's H1, H2. Another top tip, what you can do is you could actually use Markdown. So put in 2 hashes, and then it will automatically create an H2. 1 hash, it'll create, well, actually, let's remove that. 1 hash, it'll create a H1. 3 hashes, and then it'll create a H3. So you can see, just makes the editing experience a lot better. You can come along in here. You can select text and also format it if you want to highlight it, if you want to make it bold, if you want to make it a link. If you want to see all of the available blocks, you can click on here and see all of the available blocks like so. Sometimes, especially if you have a lot of, especially when I've used WordPress, if you install a new plugin, you want to see what blocks are available, you can do so just by clicking on that. And you can also search. I didn't even notice that search right there. Okay, we go in there and search. Now, I'm not going to cover a whole, how to use Gutenberg itself from top to bottom. There's a ton of videos out there, but I just want to give you a quick primer on how to use it. Then up the top here, you have an undo and redo, which is very useful. You can also, so if I add in heading 2, heading 3, and then if you click on this, you can see a list view where you can see all of the blocks. And this is a good way of seeing all the blocks, getting your head around all the blocks, especially if you have a lot. And then on outline, you can see all the headings. And this is good for just reviewing SEO stuff like that. So that is that side. Now, if we move to the right-hand side, if you click on article, here you see the Drupalisms, okay? You see title. You kind of see the right-hand side of a Drupal form, except you see the title there. So I can add in test article, and I've got the title there. And then I've got my standard stuff here. Now, you may be thinking, where are all the custom fields? Okay, Drupal allows you to chuck in a whole bunch of custom fields. Where are they? Well, if you click on more settings, here you'll see all of the custom fields. Now, I haven't really used Gutenberg where, on a content type that has 30 custom fields. I often work on content types that have even more fields than that. So I'm not quite sure what this would look like with a lot of fields. You could potentially look at using field group to control it. Well, let me chuck in a Drupal up the front. So field group allows you to simply group fields, hence the name field group. So you could do that, but just test it out. Make sure it works with Gutenberg. That's just another way of controlling your groups there. Now, the other thing you can do is that if you select a block and click on block here on the right, each block does get its own set of options. Now, this isn't the best example. Let me chuck in list. Yeah, why not, eh? List 1, or what is it? Test 2, so on and so forth. And you can see here, you get a few options. And depending on the block, the options will change. Now, Now with text, you can change the text color. You can also change the background color. Oh, that's terrible color scheme. Let me change that. You can even select a gradient. Now, depending on how much control you want to give your editors, this is either a great thing or a terrible thing. Because one thing I do like about Drupal is that it is structured. Sometimes allowing editors to, allowing your users to just chuck in any type of content and restructure it in any way actually gives you a lot of headache when you migrate out of it. So again, depends on your target market and your editors. The other thing you can do, which I personally do like, is down here, if you click on, say, dimensions, and let me make sure my face isn't covering it in the video. Let's select this one. No, my avatar is not covering it, but if you click on here, actually it is. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So if you click on here, you should see, there we go. You should see padding and margin. So you can adjust over here the padding and the margin on each block, which is good. Editors love that. They don't have to contact the dev to say, can you add a padding or margin? You can do that yourself. So that is pretty powerful. So let me just zoom this back in. Let's do a 125. All right, we have a next question. All right, okay, so the question is, why would you recommend Gutenberg for a project? I mean, a non-technical person maybe, or some other types, because of the editing experience. Pure and simple. You can easily create columns, which I will show you right now. So to answer that question, let's just go ahead and close this off. And before we do that, let's get some content. So let me grab some content. What I can do is I can come along in here. I can copy this, and I can paste it. Done. Okay. Now, let's now create a column. All right. I can come along in here and say columns, and then I can say 50 by 50. Okay, 50% by 50%. And then in the first one, let's put in a heading, and let's change this to an H3, and let's call this features. Well, can't even spell features. And then let's just chuck in this HTML, this paragraph block in here. You can see I can move blocks around, and then I can chuck it in. All right, another question. This will be useful for migrating someone from WordPress to Drupal. You know what? Okay, that comment about for migrating someone from WordPress to Drupal, I did not think about that. That's a very smart idea. Because yes, the markup, and I'll show you that towards the end. I've got it in my notes to show you how this content is stored. Would content, that is a very interesting question. Would content created on a Drupal site using Gutenberg be compatible with Gutenberg created in a WordPress site? Because at the end of the day, my understanding is that it is React. React reads like JSON comments to kind of create and bind to the markup. So it could, absolutely. That is probably an idea for another video. How to migrate WordPress to Drupal, and then also Drupal to WordPress as well, just to be objective. All right, so here, okay, coming back to here, let's also create another block here, and I'll call this, I'll chuck in another header, and then I'll call this, I don't know, why Drupal, and then we can just chuck in this, all right? So straight away, you have given your editors. So coming back to the question of why would I recommend Gutenberg, is that you can create markup like this, and it just works. Of course, there's probably a bit of styling involved on the front end. This is Drupal. It's going to be some bit of development work. But if we have a look at the outline, okay, you can have a look and see all of the blocks that are used, and you can go ahead and move them around. So if you want why Drupal to be at the bottom, chuck it at the bottom. If you want them to be above, chuck them at the top. And so, yeah, it does work pretty well. So now if we save this, let's go ahead and save it and take a look and see what it looks on the front end. All right, you can see here, I think probably some to be expected. Olivier, is that the right name for this Let me zoom that in. Hopefully you guys can see it. The front end theme probably needs to be fixed up to handle perhaps a few things here, but hey, it can all be done with front end work. It can all be done with just a bit of front end work. Okay, so comment here. Okay, maybe the fields in a database are not 100% compatible. Well, this simply just stores everything in a long text field in the database, and that's it. Okay, another comment. I was just thinking of them having the same experience, but if I could migrate their content as well, that would be really cool. Exactly. That's another good thing to think about. Training editors. Train them up on using Gutenberg, and then you can plug in any type of backend that you want. You could even use a non-PHP backend as long as you can integrate Gutenberg with it. Then yeah, absolutely. You could do a thing where, yeah, interesting. Yeah, there are a lot of good questions and answers in this stream, which I am enjoying. Okay, so coming back to this. So as you can see, the editor experience using Gutenberg is pretty powerful. It gives you a lot of flexibility. Now, I've had conversations, in the pub at DrupalCons and Drupal Souths, and now Drupal South is just a little, a smaller conference for Drupal in Australia, New Zealand, and we often have discussions about how much power, how much flexibility do you want to give to the editor? Because with great flexibility comes great power. You can do a lot of things, but you can also screw up a lot of things. But I do think Gutenberg really does give you a nice editor experience. Now, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here. Drupal does have Layout Builder, but Layout Builder is geared towards managing layouts, hence the name Layout Builder, whereas Gutenberg is more geared towards actually creating content. You would write a tutorial in this. I have written hundreds of tutorials using Gutenberg, whereas Layout Builder is more for creating layouts and potentially as a page builder, I think. So there's multiple, just like with anything Drupal, there's multiple ways of doing things. All right, I'm just looking at my list of stuff, the outline, the search. All right, okay. So the other cool thing I'll show you before we finish up is just embedding blocks, and we'll go into more detail on that later on. But just to show you the power of Gutenberg again, what we could do is create another column here, and let's call this one, let's use the 3366, and I'll chuck in a heading, and I'll call this search. And then I'll go here. Now, it is a bit, sometimes finding the correct block to select can be a little annoying. So I do recommend that you often have this list view opened up, just because, you can often lose where a block is. And normally normally when I'm writing content, I don't have the browser zoomed up this big. This is purely just for this stream, so I do have a lot more space, but I often have the list view opened up all the time just so I can control things. But what we could do is come along in here and search for, search for, here we go. And then we can say, go back to, I think, columns, and we can adjust, there you go, align middle. And so hopefully this will all be aligned, and columns will have different options. You can see here, if I select columns, you can see the column block, which then has nested blocks below it, does have different options here, and you can adjust things accordingly. So there's a lot to play with. There is a lot to play with here. And then here you have the styles in the section as well. So if I click on save, here I've got this nice little block, which I can then just add in. And if I click on search, of course, there's not much content. Well, if I type in test, it's going to show me the test article. Well, no, it hasn't, because I haven't indexed it. That's why. Anyway. Search is for another live stream. I will be covering search in a future live stream. Okay, so there you go. You can easily create a column, chuck in Drupal blocks, and you don't have to write any custom code for it, which is pretty good, pretty good. All right, now the last thing I'll show you is just embedding. Now, what we can do is if we share this URL. Now, this is the older video. So this video is going to replace this video. What we can do is down at the bottom here, I can paste in a YouTube video and it is automatically going to embed it in for me. And it straight away figures out based off the URL using probably OEmbed, I think it's called. And then it automatically just embeds the video for you. And you do have a lot of flexibility here. Now, as I mentioned, you still need to integrate some of this markup with your front-end theme, because I do know if I save this, it's not going to look perfect. It's going to still be, fixed at this particular width and height. So you will have to do a bit of front-end work just to kind of make it compatible. But that's the same with using CK Editor in Drupal. CK Editor does generate markup, and often you have to adjust your front end to read that markup. If it's like a text center, text left, text right, just to justify things. So there's always a bit of front end work involved. This isn't WordPress. You're not just going to get something out of the box. It's Drupal. We like to make things harder. Anyway, that's a joke. That's a joke. All right. So now let's move on to one of my favorite parts, and that is media handling. Now, I've talked about media management in Drupal since 2013 when I saw, the big push to get decent media management in Drupal 8 back then. And this was in 2013, DrupalCon Prague, long time ago. I was a younger man. I had hair, didn't have kids, lived the life, living overseas. And since then, I've always spent a lot of time, getting my head around media management, because one thing I've realized is that a lot of my Drupal work, especially with government, and because I've worked with a lot of content editors, a lot of their pain points comes down to how Drupal handles media. They want to be able to just upload a file and it just uploads, or they want to bulk upload images. I'm not going to show you how to bulk upload images. Again, maybe that's for another video, a whole media management / file management video, because I do have a whole bunch of tutorials on WebWash about it. But just the ability to upload stuff like that, just handling all that type of stuff. And yeah, I've always been very, very interested in it. So now what I want to do is show you how to drag and drop images directly into Gutenberg so it automatically uploads a file. But before we do that, let me just show you the current functionality, because you can do that exact thing right now. So what I'll do is I do have images here. So let me just check out my image. All right. This is my old audio setup, which I'm just trying to sell because I'm trying to downsize. I've got a new mic now, but an actual cheaper mic. The costs of this, that was way too fancy. Anyway, so here I've got a bunch of images. Let's have a look at a question. Okay, will Gutenberg in the future develop per block CSS? Okay, so will Gutenberg in the future develop per block CSS like the single, I think it's single directory component or something like that? Yes, I do believe that when it comes to, now, that's more of a Gutenberg block API question. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think, and I will cover that. Well, let's just have a quick look at it now before we jump. Actually, no, I want to try and keep this going. To answer your question, I do think that you can have single CSS files for each Gutenberg block. I do believe so, but I'm not a Gutenberg block expert, so I can't really answer that. But yeah, I'm sure if you look in the APIs for that type of stuff, you'll get your answer there. Okay, coming back to this. So if I want to upload a file, all I need to do is click on this, upload it, and also check this out, which I just thought I'd show you, is that you can chuck it into different columns as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so take note of this. It just says file. It just says file entity has been created successfully. Now, take note of the file entity, because from a Drupal standpoint, this is very important, okay? But here you can see a file has been created. Perfect, okay? We can come along in here. We can resize it. Already, this is this this functionality compared to current standard Drupal is light years ahead. Unfortunately, it is. We can set it as full width. We can do all this type of stuff. Of course, you'll probably have to tweak the front end for it. I'm not sure. I'll be curious to see how this cropping works. I haven't really tested it for this video. Maybe we're gonna have a play with it at the end. We'll see. But you can crop. Well, actually, you know what? Let's just give it a go. Why don't we? Let's say square. Come along in here and say apply. Boom. All right. It works. Okay, that's pretty cool. I won't lie to you. That is pretty cool. Now, let's just have a look. I want to see, does it actually modify the original source? Because if you want to have a look at the file that was uploaded, come in here. Oh no, it doesn't. That is interesting. All right, that is interesting. It actually creates a copy. Huh. Okay. That is a nice to know. You know what? I have to probably do a separate tutorial or a separate video on this stuff. But all of these are ideas for a lot of these live streams, which I'm trying to just get into the habit of doing a lot more of. Okay, that is very interesting. Anyway, so I've done all of this. I've edited. What you can do here then on the right-hand side is you can adjust you can make it rounded. You can also add in alt text. You can adjust the aspect ratio, which is actually pretty cool. You can also change the image style. Now, these on the bottom, can you see this? No, you can't, because my avatar is covering it. Let me just move this up so you can see it. Okay, there you go, right there. Okay, I'm just looking at my other screen to see because my face is covering it. So these are image styles. So if you use Drupal, these are just standard image styles. So I can go ahead and change it to a thumbnail, and it looks terrible, to be expected. All right, cool. So I can go ahead and save it. All right, and it looks great there. Okay, but importantly, it's just created a file entity. Now you can go ahead, and if I create another piece of content, come along in here. Let's call this test article 2. Test article 2. And if I go /image, I can upload. All right. I can drag and drop, as you saw. I can click on media library, and then it displays a media library of the file entities. So here you can see the two versions, because one is edited and one isn't. So these two files match, of course, these files right here. But the problem with this is that it cannot be reused with other parts of Drupal. Normally, you would have to use the media module with media library. That is the now de facto standard way of creating reusable assets. So the simple fix for this is to just install the media module and media library, because then Gutenberg just automatically integrates with it, because it must have code that knows, okay, you have media library installed. Then what happens is when you upload a file, it actually creates a media entity as well as a file entity for you. So all we need to do to fix this problem is just install media and media library. Now, let's be honest, you should have this module stored on your site. I recommend that you always use a media, image media type for handling your assets, because it just gives you way more flexibility. So if we now go ahead and let's just go and remove this stuff. And what I'll do is I'll also, let's just remove this. All right, cool. So now what we can do is something that's new in Drupal, and I think it's like Drupal 10.2, I think, or 10.1. I don't know. It's been recent. You can actually delete files, which is cool. It's been a while since you've been able to do that. Of course, you can do that with with modules, but actually support that out of the box is awesome. Now, we have this new media tab. That's because we have the media module installed. And if we go ahead, go back to our article and upload, where is it? Upload our image, straight away you'll see file and media entity have been created successfully. And then if I come back here, you can see that a media entity has been created straight away. And now this means that you can then reuse this asset on any type of other custom field that you have in Drupal. So you're not just tied to the media stuff. To Gutenberg. So let's go ahead and modify this. And the good thing is, even though it's still using I'll be curious to know, maybe it's using the, what is it? The file entity directly here, because yeah, you can pretty much just change whatever you want and it works the same way. But I will be curious now. And I like to do, stuff that I haven't tested. Let's crop this. So if I come along in here, crop, and I want to know what it actually does. So zoom. All right, let's zoom into this Focusrite. Let's zoom into this interface and Cloudlifter, which is a preamp. Click on apply. All right, cool. Click on save. Interesting, he hasn't updated it. Anyway, oh no, had to do a hard refresh. Now, what does this do? Does it? All right, still creates the edited version. But it doesn't attach it. Interesting. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We'll give it that. All right. That's interesting, because you could essentially have editors. You could have editors go in there, attach images, resize them, crop them, and it doesn't update this actual media asset. Anyway, well, no system is perfect. No system is perfect. All right, now if I was to upload, let me upload an actual asset here. And what I'll do is I will upload, what have we got here? Okay, let's put in this actual mic one here. What is it? Sure. What's it called? SM7B. I always forget the name. SM7B. Click on save. And then if I go back into my editor, and what I'll do is, let's be extra fancy because we love columns. All right. Why is that not letting me? All right. Columns, 2x2. Let's move this one in there and let's select image. And what I can do is I do get this nice little setup right here. It needs to be kind of styled, but you can see this is the media library, and then I can select my asset, which I've created elsewhere, insert it in, align left. No, that doesn't work. Center. Let's see what happens. All right, need to do a bit of front end work, but that's to be expected. Okay, so that is that. Now, before we move on, the other thing I want to show you is documents. Now, this is another thing where editors really want to control how documents are displayed, especially if you work for government. It's all about documents and making sure things are displayed nicely. So if we come along in here and, well, let's just get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. So let me upload a file, PDF. This is just a test PDF. And straight away, you will see a media file, a media asset have been created. That's fine. And it goes ahead and it embeds the PDF. Great. Okay, fine. You can turn off the inline, which you can do straight away from here. And then if we click on save, you can see here we have this download button, which allows you to download it. Now, as a Drupal site builder developer, I like to be able to create view modes and be able to create custom, create a custom view mode and then contextually display a piece of content depending on the view mode, because you may have a document being displayed as an embed. You may have a document being displayed as a sidebar. You may have a piece of document displayed in the footer, and you want to tweak the look and feel of that piece of content depending on the location of which it is embedded on the page. So again, context plays a huge part. Now, if you come here, go into edit, click on our, and what is this? File. You cannot select a view mode at all. Yes, you can change file name and attachment. You can link to media file or attachment page, but you can't specify the view mode. Now, to get around that, what you can do is use a custom Gutenberg block. Well, maybe it's a Drupal block. I don't know. But I'll show you. So let's go and edit our content type. Come along in here, Gutenberg experience. And now we should see this media. And you'll only see this if you have the media module installed. Scroll down. And what we'll do is let's go into view modes and let's create an embed view mode. So I'll call this one embed and I'll allow it for, say, document. And then I'll configure it on the document media type. And I'll change it to table of files. And then I'll add in a label so it's above. Click on save. And now if let's remove this. Let's save it. You'll probably have to refresh the page. Come back in and I type in, say, media. Here we go. We can then select our media library, go to document, and then select it, embed it. And then, most importantly, on the right-hand side, we have a view mode. So we can select our view mode. So you can go ahead and create all sorts of media types, all sorts of custom embeds, and then just chuck it in there. And then you can easily just go embed here, and then it'll display it like so. And then we can click on save. And now we are displaying the embed look and feel of that document, which is pretty powerful. All right, there's a comment there. Wouldn't you want a thumbnail of the PDF? Absolutely, but it depends. And this is a common question I get, like, why can't Drupal automatically generate a thumbnail from a PDF? Out of the box, Drupal cannot generate a thumbnail from a PDF because it needs to do a lot more processing. It essentially needs to grab the first page, generate an image, attach it, and so on and so forth. So in the past, what I've recommended is if you go into here, media types, document, just create a cover file, an image field. Or do you create an image field? No, actually, this might be a good use for an image field where you would create like a cover image field. And so when you create a document, the editor or whoever's creating the content would have to upload the PDF and also the cover image for that PDF. And then what you can do is you should be able to here display a thumbnail. So I do believe that this thumbnail is a hard-coded property. So that is a specific property on the media type, but you could then bring up your cover letter image field and then resize it to thumbnail, and it should work. That's how I've done things in the past. But to answer your question again, Drupal won't automatically just generate a thumbnail from a PDF, and that's the same for locally uploaded videos as well. Drupal can't just automatically generate a thumbnail like you can for, say, YouTube, because the code for YouTube actually goes to YouTube itself, downloads the thumbnail and attaches it to the actual remote video. Whereas local videos, you would need something like FFmpeg to read the first frame, capture that frame, save it as an image, attach it. There's a lot more involved. But of course, resizing images is fine. You can just easily resize it. You use, GD library or something like that. Okay. So as you can see, the ability to embed media assets and selecting a view mode is pretty powerful. And even if you use that with Gutenberg and you just allow your editors access to paragraphs, to the paragraph block, heading block, like really lock things down. You know, it's amazing what you can do. It is amazing what you can do. All right, now let's look at embedding blocks. And when I say blocks, again, I mean Drupal blocks this time, because this is another thing where if you get this right, you can, you know, your editors would be able to just create awesome looking pages just by chucking in Drupal blocks in certain sections, and you can then create reusable blocks. You can add in call to actions. You can create a nice editor experience. You could write blog posts to then promote products if you're using Drupal Commerce. It's just a whole ton of stuff you can do. All right, let's now go ahead and first create a custom block. So if I come along in here and then click on add custom block. Now, I do believe this is new in Drupal 10.2, which is actually pretty cool. So if I come along in here and I create Drupal reusable block, my custom block. So I've just gone ahead in here and created a basic block. All right. This stuff has been in Drupal for a very long time. If I open up a new tab, go into block layout, go into header, and then search for my reusable block here, you can see it right here. Okay. It's there. It's just a block type and that's it. Nothing fancy. All right. Now, if we go, well, let's go back to our content. And what we will do here, let me get rid of this. If I search for basic block, okay, and I click here, you can see I've got a few options here. I can go ahead and create inline block. Now, what's going to happen? Now, what do you think will happen if I click on update block? Now, I did mention that this is an inline block. So Layout Builder allows you to create inline blocks, and so does Gutenberg. So this means if I add a block in like so, it is inline on this piece of content. You won't be able to see it from here. You can see here, you cannot see the block here because it is inline. Now, Layout Builder does the same thing. It is inline. But if I come along here and search for Drupal, you'll see that I cannot see my reusable block, which I created from the block section. Now, to do that, let's just save this. Now, to do that, what I need to do is go into content types and then click on edit, go down to the Gutenberg experience, then allow Drupal blocks. And here under content blocks, you should see all of your custom content blocks that you've created. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to handle if you have 30 or 40 blocks, who knows? But what I'll do is I'll just enable, I'll just select all and then click on save. And then if we go back into here, edit our test article, type in / and I'll start typing in Drupal, you can see our block is right here, which is great. I can then go ahead and save it. I can then go to another page. And again, let's put this in, custom block. I can then type in Drupal block and it is there. I cannot edit the block because remember, it is a Drupal block. I can go in there and save it. So right now I have embedded this one block into 2 sections. Then the good thing about that is I can go ahead here and let's just underline custom. So, there is no underline. Okay. Let's make it bold and italicize it. Click on save. And then it should, hoping there's no caching problems. If we go to test article, you can see that it hasn't. Now that's interesting. Why hasn't that? Because strong, maybe strong isn't, so it's coming through. It's coming through. I'm curious to see why isn't strong being made bold? That is interesting. Font weight bold. Anyway, you can see that it is being changed. Well, let's just make it more obvious. Let's go back here. Extra text. So if I come along in here, it's saved and I refresh, I'm going to see that extra bit of text below. So you can modify the block once, and the change will automatically appear when you go to those other pages. Now, you might have caching problems just with everything in Drupal, with cache tags and cache context. So, and also if you're using, what is it, CloudFront, you will have caching problems. So it, your mileage may vary on how quickly it gets refreshed and changed, but as long as you haven't heavily customized the front end theme or written custom code which overrides cache tags, then everything should work. In my day job, I probably fix up caching problems with cache tags and things not invalidating about every fortnight. So it's a common thing. So it is a common thing. All right, let's have a look at a few questions. All right, is it a permissions issue? You can't edit the block. No, because the block should only be edited from the blocks section. So no, that's not a permission issue. Gutenberg just allows you to embed that block. So that the Drupal reusable block, which I created. Let me just have a sip. So the Drupal block, which I just created. So let me show you. Yeah, this one should only be edited from this page, and that's it. So no, that isn't an issue. All right. So that's just one thing to be aware of when it comes to reusable blocks. Now, the other thing I want to show you is patterns, because if you've been watching the screen, let me just close a few of these tabs. Let's go back here. We do have these patterns, and now this was added because we installed Gutenberg. Now, patterns is a system of just grouping Gutenberg blocks together and reusing them across multiple pages. And this is actually useful for creating call to actions at the bottom, or like, sign up forms or something like that, some type of reusable content. So what I'll do is I'll show you how to set that up. So let's go into one of our pages. Let's go into our test article. Oh, sorry, test article 2. Let's remove that. And what I'll do is I'll call this one footer. Footer. All right. Yes. And then we'll chuck in, footer, reusable, footer content. All right. So what I can do, let's actually group these, because I do believe that if you go /group, no, not that, group, there we go. Group. So this is just like a nice container. So let's add this into a container, because then what you can do is, if we have a look at the footer, yep, okay. So then come along here and we can create a pattern, sorry, not a patent, a pattern. And then we can call this one reusable footer, and then make sure, well, if you want synced editing, the pattern will update it anywhere it is used. And now this is reusable. So we can go along in here and save it. If we go to patterns, we can see our reusable block. You can't really do anything from here. You can't go ahead and modify it directly from here, which confused me. You can delete it, but I wouldn't allow that. That would be actually a terrible idea. But now what we can do is go to our other article, and let's just delete some of these blocks, clean them up. And if I search for, what was it, reusable? Yeah, there we go. We can either search, we can either find our pattern from the name, or if you click on add here, you can see a whole bunch of patterns. And you can see this like default one, or you've got this reusable one. And then that one has been added in. And also it's highlighted as purple as well. So it is there and nicely highlighted. Now, if you want to modify it, you can go ahead and modify things. Sometimes this this little pop-up does get a bit annoying. So what you can do is come along in here, and I think it is top toolbar. There you go. Select that, and then it always appears up the top here. I actually prefer this because it does get in the way sometimes. So extra content. So I can do that. And then if I click on save, it should automatically extra content, update there, perfect. And it should update here as well. There you go. It has been now propagated across all other pages. Now, if we come along in here and let's say, can you actually spin this out and copy it? No, I was thinking if you could just, so if, okay, let's say you want to, let's see if you duplicate it. Does that just duplicate it? That just duplicates it. Yeah, I just thought there was a button because I do remember in the WordPress version, you can actually just convert this. Well, let's go back. There you go. Command Z works. In the WordPress version, I think you can convert a pattern into a standard set of blocks. So you can override it essentially, but I'm not sure if that's available here. Transfer to, okay, anyway. So yeah, patterns are very good for just reusing content and also reusing, just creating a set of reusable assets that you can chuck around. All right. Okay, now let's look at last bit of site building before we jump into a bit of, well, just look at the code a bit because I love looking at the code because that's the first thing I always do. And that is just setting up permission because this is where I kind of struggled. Just understanding the permission system and things like that. All right. So what we'll do is let's go ahead. Let's ignore that. Let's go ahead and create a test user account because if you are using this with a bunch of users, you will hit this issue. Okay. What I'm going to do is create a content editor and create an account. Let's create open up our incognito. So while I set things up, if you have any questions, please ask away. All right. Ivan, all right, cool. All right. So here I've got a browser where I'm logged in with a test account. And then here I'm logged in as admin because I will have to adjust things accordingly. All right. So I'm just having a quick look at the watches. Looks like my YouTube has the most watches. Huh. Okay, pretty cool. All right. Now, if I come along in here and click on add, then content, you'll straight away see this problem down here. 1, 2. Oh, no, leave it at that. This field has been disabled because you don't have the sufficient permissions to edit it. So what you need to do is go to people. Well, let's go to roles, edit permissions, or you can just go to permissions as well. Search for Gutenberg, and you will have to give it this use Gutenberg blocks text format. That's a mouthful. And also use Gutenberg experience. So you give it that. And you come along in here and everything loads up. So that's important. That's the first thing, okay? Now I can come along in here and create a my test article. Well, actually, let's chuck in a bit of text. Leave, yeah, whatever. Okay, and it's working, okay? Now, let's see what happens if we want to put in an inline block. We cannot see the body field. Now, why is that? Because if we come along in here, and I go basic, I can see a body field. Why is that? Now, this took a bit of debugging. I actually cheated and I looked at the code. Essentially, what we need to do is we need to assign it what is it? I'm looking at my notes here. Create and edit content blocks. All right, let's go here. Let's go back. Roles. And search for create and edit, but we cannot see that permission. And the reason why you can't see that permission is because it's actually a permission that's part of Layout Builder. Now, if you have Layout Builder installed, you're fine. Okay, it will just, you just have to know which permission to assign the role, and then it's going to work. But if you don't have Layout Builder, you'll be like me, pulling out what little hair you have, figuring out why you can't see it. Because always when I test out, like practice these videos, what I'm going to present or do tutorials or write tutorials, I always spin up a brand new site, a freshly installed Drupal site, just so that I've got a nice playing field. Okay, let's install Layout Builder. And now, if I refresh, type in create and edit. Yep. Now we have create and edit custom blocks. I can go ahead and I can install it. Sorry, no, assign a permission. All right. Now, if I refresh, it will. Oh, no, it's not going to show it to me. Okay, I have to go custom block. I know, block, basic block. And now I can see the inline block. So there you go. That's a nice little web wash top tip. Well, the top tip is look at the code. Okay. All right. Another question. What about the Gutenberg Cloud with sample blocks? Could just show a few. Interesting that has actually been removed from the version 3 beta. So Gutenberg Cloud, because it was part of a module, and in the first video that I did, I covered it, but it's been removed from the module. So I'm not going to cover it because it's been removed in version 3. There was an issue for it. I tracked it down to see why it was removed. It was just removed that it's like no longer used or something, or like there's other ways of doing it. So I think, I don't know, I have a feeling that the Gutenberg Cloud thing is getting deprecated. I don't know, but all I know is that it's been removed. So that's why I'm not going to show it. And there used to be a submodule which you would install, but it's no longer there. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much an overview of the that's an overview of using Gutenberg from a backend standpoint. Let's now jump into the code and just have a quick look and a peruse around the code. So if I jump into PHP Storm and why can't I see? There we go. I can see that. Okay, so if you go into modules, you will see this. Hopefully you can all see it. Yeah, you can. You will see this example block. This module is used as kind of like an example way of creating your custom Gutenberg block. So if you really want to go ahead and have full control over your blocks, you can do so with this module. Now, all of the magic, I believe, happens here. No, so the standard index.js is the compiled version. The ES6 one, I believe, is the one you want to modify. So you come along in here. And essentially what you do down here, you register your block type. And I will do a video on this. I really want to do a separate video, but I do think that's more of an advanced topic, and I will cover it later on, and I will have a separate video for this on how to create your own custom blocks. But you can see here, it is actually fairly simple to understand. I find it actually pretty simple to understand. If you look here, you can see all the functions. Yeah, it is pretty simple to understand. Of course, everything's simple to understand once you know it. But then you can come along here and, yeah, I believe it loads up these tweak templates as well. So you can see that there is a bit of integration with Drupal, similar to what is it, ACF blocks in WordPress. The integration between Gutenberg and WordPress is great if you use ACF blocks, because I try to create my own custom Gutenberg block back in the day, and yeah, it was a lot of effort. So if you want to create your own blocks, look at it here. The other thing I do want to mention is how this content is actually stored. So if I look in the database and go to, let me just clean this up. So this is all the Drupal databases. Now, because this is being used on the block, no, sorry, the body field. If we search for node body, there we go, or node body, and I'll bring that up, I should see, here we go. Now, hopefully I can open in editor. All right, let's close this. Let's expand this. And then here you can actually see what the code looks like. So a block is, this is a block. And here you can see this kind of like comments / JSON thingy where it actually puts in metadata of the block in this comment. So the original question about, could you migrate all this content from a WordPress site into a Drupal site? Would it work? Well, it could technically work as long as you are using the same blocks in Drupal as you were in WordPress, because those blocks will then look for these things. So you can see here this metadata for the columns. Yeah. So this is how the content is stored. So as I mentioned, if you want structured content, you will still need to use something like paragraphs. So if you want structured content with fields, yeah, still look at using paragraphs for that type of stuff. All right. I think that is pretty much it. Any questions before we kind of wrap up? Chuck your questions. Well, for the final money shot, I'll leave it here. No, not that one. Any other? All right. So any other questions before we finish up? Going once, going twice. No. All right, cool. All right. Well, I'll leave you all to it. Thank you very much for joining this webinar / live stream / whatever this is. No, the reason why I'm trying to do more of these live streams is just because it's a quick way of just getting content out, and it stops me from over editing and spending hours editing every and ahs, because now the and ahs are out into the ether. Anyway. All right. Thanks a lot. And yeah, just by doing this video, I've got so many ideas for other content. So if you want to learn more about WebWash, just head over to webwash.net, where we've got a whole bunch of videos and also tutorials about Drupal and also other CMSs. Thanks a lot. Well, thanks and greetings from Poland. Well, hello from Australia. Thanks a lot. All right, cool. All right. I'll catch you all next time. See you later.